Okay, good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of council to order, May 13th, 2025, 6 p.m. We are broadcasting live on the Town of St. Mary's YouTube channel from the Council Chambers, Town of St. Mary's. The Council for the Town of St. Mary's acknowledges with gratitude and respect that we are gathering on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people of the Longhouse, giving thanks for all creation. I'll begin this evening asking for declarations of pecuniary interest, started with Councillor Craig Mile.
None.
Councillor Edney.
None.
Councillor Luna.
None.
Councillor Lucas.
None.
Councillor Pridham.
None.
Councillor Alward.
None.
And I have none. The agenda was circulated. Are there any errors or omissions, problems with the agenda? Seeing nothing, I'll ask for a motion that the May 13th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be accepted as presented. Someone want to move that? Councillor Craig Ma moves. Seconder, please. Councillor Luna. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next up is the public input period, item number 4. I have received nothing. I'll just defer to our clerk. Was there anything put in this evening? Okay, thank you. Seeing nothing, we'll move on to item number 5, which is regards to delegations, presentations, and public meetings. This evening we have the statutory meeting regarding the Development 121 Ontario Street South. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. The purpose of tonight's public meeting, is to solicit the public's comments with respect to the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 121 Ontario Street South by Rick and Melanie Murphy. Tonight's meeting is the mandatory public meeting held under the Planning Act. If you wish to be notified of the decision of this application, please contact our clerk, Jenna McCartney, at clerk's office at town.stmarys.on.ca. I'll now ask Ms. McCartney to advise how notice was given.
Thank you, Mayor Strathy. A bit of information here tonight for you, Council. Notice was given by first-class mail to the owners of all properties located within 120 meters or 400 feet of the subject lands, to those agencies as prescribed by regulation, and signage advertising tonight's meeting was posted on the subject property. The following is a summary of agency comments received. Canada Post commented that the development will be serviced by centralized mail delivery provided through Canada Post community mailboxes in accordance with Canada Post requirements. Canada Post also provided recommended conditions of site plan approval. The Chippewas of the Thames First Nations indicated that it has minimal concerns with the proposed development. The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority provided comments summarized as following. The subject lands are regulated by the UTRCA due to a riverine flooding hazard associated with the Thames River. UTRCA staff assessed the flood hazard with updated modeling that confirmed that the proposed development is located outside of the flood hazard. An erosion hazard was identified on the subject lands. However, it was concluded that the slope along the west side of Thomas Street has likely been engineered through the construction of the road and is not a part of the natural river valley system. Because of this, the UTRCA does not consider this to be a regulated slope. The final point from the UTRCA is that it has no objections to the zoning bylaw amendment and advises that the applicant, that the property is still regulated and a Section 28 permit of letter or letter of clearance from UTRCA regulations, staff will be required prior to construction. The town has also received public comments summarized as followed. Robert Green commented that he has no comments on the merits of the proposal, but indicated that generally this has been a good quality development. Mr. Green has also indicated that on-street parking by residents along the curved section of Ontario Street South is causing problems by forcing southbound traffic into the path of cyclists and other traffic coming from Park Lane and turning right onto Ontario Street South. He further stated that increased density will worsen the situation unless street parking is banned in the vicinity of the property, and in future, street parking on Thomas Street may cause similar problems for traffic from Park Street. Catherine Baird, Unit 7 of 121 Ontario Street South, voiced concern with the removal of existing accessible amenity space. Sandra Priestap of 184 Elgin Street West has provided comments regarding the application summarized as follows. She is concerned with the increased traffic on Ontario Street South and, I quote, deplorable condition of the cement street, end quote, and resulting traffic noise due to, quote, many holes and cracks in the cement, end quote. Suggests that parking be provided on Thomas Street for this new 9-unit building and not add to the congestion on Ontario Street South. Insufficient on-site parking is provided, and as a result, quote, a number of residents prefer to park on the outside curve of Ontario Street South, which creates a problem for vehicles traveling north or south on Ontario Street South, obscuring visibility, end quote. Ms. Priestap also asked during the planning meeting, when Ontario Street is reconstructed, where will apartment residents park and how will they access the site, quote, if Ontario Street South is under construction for a year or more, end quote. Ms. Priestap also commented that if a driveway is dug out along the north side of the property, the mature trees that belong to the abutting property owner will be killed and they will lose their shade, privacy, and noise buffering from the multi-unit apartment buildings. The final comments received did arrive today from Stephen and Nancy Habermill of 89 Ontario Street South, have provided comments regarding the application summarized as follows. Mr. Habermill indicated that he was raised in the area and has a strong sense of roots in this neighborhood, and notes that the owners of 121 Ontario Street South and their tenants have been respectful neighbors. All previous new development occurred to the south of the Stone School building, leaving the rest of the property from the south wall of the former school to our shared property line to the north substantially unchanged. The proposed expansion now brings the access driveway right to the north property line, and the new building and parking eliminates green space that was part of the original development plan. Further, when discussing the merits of that original plan, though not a formal restriction, the open view of the east face of the school from Park and Thomas Streets was pointed out as a virtue, but will be lost with the proposed future development. To the extent possible, quote, my wife and I would like to ensure the property separation respects the mature trees and nature of our side of the line, including mitigation of bright lighting, the use of appropriate fencing to manage human traffic flow, and that surface water management does not increase saturation on our property. Also during construction, we would hope techniques can be deployed that contain disruption to the confines of 121, end quote. In the end, they recognize that their limited influence on what is being done by their neighbors of the property, and they trust that mutual courtesy and cooperation will continue to be shown in the future. Those are the end of the comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now ask Councillor Craig Mile to advise Council of the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application. Councillor Craig Mile, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the March 17th, 2025 meeting, the Planning Advisory Committee endorsed the application in principle and recommended that Council proceed with the statutory public meeting.
Okay, thank you. Now call upon the town's planner, Mr. Mark Stone, to provide additional information regarding the proposed application. Mr. Stone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a presentation. Hopefully you can see the first slide, which is the location slide. The property is bounded by Ontario Street South, Thomas Street, and Park Lane, as shown on the plan. The property is relatively flat, but I'm sure, as most of you know, it slopes down towards Thomas and Park. As far as a bit of a history, the town completed the sale of this property back in 2017. It was the former Early Learning Center, and the current owners purchased it for the intent of building apartment type development on the property. So in 2018, the town received zoning and site plan applications, and they were approved by council to permit the establishment of 23 residential units. 5 units were established in the former Early Learning Center building on the north end of the property. And in the remaining 3 new buildings, 6 units were created each of those units. And that created a total of 23 units that currently exist on the property today, along with parking areas in the north and southern areas of the property. And as shown on the aerial photo, there are 3 accesses existing, 1 from Park and 2 from Ontario. So we've received zoning and site plan applications regarding this property and the proposed development of a 5th building in the northeast quadrant of the property. This building would add 9 units to the property with a combination of 2 and 3 bedroom units. And this would bring the total up from 23 units to 32 units on the property. A laneway is also proposed along the north property line to connect the Northern Ontario Street access to the new proposed building, and 15 new parking spaces proposed to support the 9 new units. It's noted, as I mentioned a second ago, that a separate site plan application has been submitted. That site plan application is not subject to this public meeting. There's a separate approval process, but both applications are being considered concurrently. And in addition, a number of studies as required by the town were submitted in support of the 2 applications. As far as the planning context, the property is designated residential in the town's official plan. The residential designation permits a wide range of housing types and forms, anywhere from single attached up to apartment type units. This development meets a number of the key policies in the official plan with respect to providing additional housing in the form of intensification. There are policies in the official plan that speak to meeting the character of the community and also being compatible with adjacent land uses. And the official plan also speaks to preventing adverse impacts on cultural heritage properties, one being the property directly to the north, which is a designated property. The applicant did submit a heritage impact assessment, and I will talk about that in a few minutes. The zoning of the property is R5-11. The R5-11 came into place with the 2018 zoning bylaw amendment. The R5 and the prefix 11 provides site-specific provisions or regulations for the site. The proposed type of residential development is permitted. The proposed development would meet all setbacks, parking requirements, and so on, but an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to increase the maximum number of units from 23 to 32. So in my staff report, I've summarized the key considerations and issues that have been raised to date. I just want to summarize those quickly and provide some preliminary responses to each. To date, no concerns have been expressed by town departments or agencies. As I mentioned, the proposed development is generally in keeping with the OP, which encourages the creation of new housing choice in the community. The town staff requested that the applicant confirm how garbage would be stored and collected from the property. The applicant has confirmed that they will continue with a system of a combination of waste and recycling bins to be used to serve the residents of the property. As mentioned by the clerk, there was a concern about the loss of amenity areas. The area where the proposed building and associated parking is proposed was an outdoor amenity area. And the resident was concerned that the loss of that would, well, reduce or eliminate any amenity areas on the site. One thing I would say about this is that while some parts of the property are clearly on a hill, especially along the eastern property line, extending down to Thomas, about 50% of the property is green space or open space. And in response to these concerns that were raised at the Planning Advisory Committee meeting a few months ago, the applicant has the site plan that's actually in the staff report is a redesign. And the applicant responded to this concern and has created a new amenity area. I'd call it a seating area, meeting place that would be located directly south of the former Early Learning Center. So it provides some additional amenity space along with the green space that already exists on the property. One of the biggest and most concern that we heard from residents related to traffic and parking and road conditions. And due to on-street parking and the design and condition of Ontario Street, we have heard about safety concerns resulting from potential conflicts between vehicles and bikes and so on. Now, the town's Public Works Department has looked at this, has indicated that Ontario Street is currently designed with the standard required minimum width of right-of-way with 2 lanes of traffic. But Public Works staff also recognizes these concerns, has indicated that this section of Ontario Street is actually planned to be reconstructed in 2027, and this will include replacement of the concrete surface with asphalt. And so the town appreciates receiving these comments and concerns. Staff is aware of these comments, and staff has said that these potential issues, will be considered in the design of Ontario Street, which will, of course, occur in the near future as we're leading up to 2027. With respect to the concern about insufficient parking, the applicant is meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw, but has also indicated that they continue to do what they can to ensure that the parking provided on the site for tenants and visitors are maintained and prevent unauthorized users. With respect to affordable housing, this development has already contributed to the provision of affordable housing as defined by the province. And these 9 additional units will provide some additional housing options to residents. And then lastly, with respect to cultural heritage, tree removal, and the interface with the heritage property to the north, as I mentioned, the town did require a heritage impact assessment. It has been reviewed, staff. To be clear, the public meeting tonight is in regard to the zoning bylaw amendment. And it's required, as I mentioned, to increase the number of units on the site. There is, as I mentioned, a separate site plan review process. And so if this zoning bylaw amendment is eventually approved, it doesn't necessarily mean that the current version of the site plan that is attached to the staff report won't be modified. In fact, in the heritage impact assessment, there are mitigation measures that are recommended to maintain that buffer, to maintain those trees. And they've provided a suite of options, including, well, simply maintaining as many trees and vegetation as possible, selective removal, replacement plantings, possible construction techniques to avoid root damage. So these recommendations will be considered as part of the site plan approval process and to address the public concerns that have been expressed with respect to potential impacts, in particular along the north property line. That's my overview, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now invite the applicants, who are Rick and Melanie Murphy, and they're on the line. They're with us by Zoom this evening. And they've appeared before council before. And I just, if they have something to add to the application, then we'll hold our comments or questions from council until after, if there's any public that show up to speak. So, Mrs. Murphy, are you there this evening?
Yes, we are.
Okay, the floor is yours. If you want to explain something further to council, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Stone has done an excellent job reviewing the project with his presentation. And I don't think there's a whole lot for us to add. It has been our pleasure to be the custodians of the West Ward School and to be able to convert it into something that continues to live and serve our community. When we did this original development, the back playground, so the original playground for the daycare, it was intended as a green space. Because we weren't thinking about it, to be quite honest. It wasn't a part of what made sense. It wasn't where our vision was at the time. We have since that point realized the potential of that area at the back of the property and feel that this could continue to add value to the town's housing stock. It's a great use of existing residential land. It's as infill as you can get, reusing land that's already purposed as multi-residential. I appreciate the comments from the Habermals saying that we've been respectful and kind neighbors, and we continue to move forward on that journey and wish to be good neighbors, not just to them, but to the whole neighborhood. So we're excited to take this on. We're hoping that we're able to move through this process and get a shovel in the ground sooner than later.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just check with the clerk. There's been nothing else submitted. Okay, so then I'll open it up to council if you're okay. If there's any questions, either to Mr. Stone or to yourselves, I'll open up for council for questions with regards to the application. Councilor Pridham?
Thank you, through your worship. Just a question about parking. Are there designated parking spaces for the tenants that are there and designated visitors spaces? I'm really not sure how that's laid out, so.
Absolutely. Currently, we have numbered parking spaces, so each tenant gets one parking spot per unit. The number correlates with the unit number. There is designated visitor parking, handicap parking, and then there is some additional reserved parking. So it's some surplus parking that is in excess of the bylaw requirements that we choose to offer to some tenants at a price if they wish to have a second vehicle on site. It is an ongoing issue for parking when people want as much parking as they can have, but land is limited and spots are limited. So those reserved spots that we have given us a tool to help allow for some extra parking, but it's still a controlled parking arrangement. With the proposed building, we do have adequate parking for 9 spaces to correlate with those 9 additional units, as well as visitor parking and handicap parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, further. Yes, just adding a little question onto that. If someone comes in and says they have 2 vehicles and there's not adequate parking, do you take them as a tenant or do you refer them to find something else?
I encourage them to look at the situation themselves. So when I'm looking at a tenant, I like to decide first whether this is a tenant that would be a good fit to enter into a legal contract with. I'm very clear about the parking requirements. We've had tenants that have a second vehicle and they have a family member down the street. They've got a friend that they can store it. Sometimes tenants do take that route. Other tenants opt not to. And we have signage on the property and we are able to tow those who are not abiding by that. I don't have assigned parking in the sense that it's only 1 license plate per spot. It is, I don't care what vehicle you have in your spot, but if you are occupying a visitor spot and you are not a visitor, then you need to remove your vehicle. So in that instance, we've had tenants who have turned down units because they need 2 parking spots, or tenants who have left the property when they add a second vehicle and there isn't the flexibility for them to keep that vehicle. It is not just me who's keeping an eye on it. I have lots of tenant friends who also are looking for equality and fairness in the parking world. So if I don't catch that somebody's using a visitor parking spot, I usually hear about it through the grapevine and can address it as such. To date, I have not had to tow anybody, but there have been some firm reminders, and usually there's a natural end to the tenancy as they're looking to find something that meets their needs.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, those answers. That's great. And I just have a question for, about the street parking, and it's been noted that that's an issue, and the road reconstruction. So I understand that there's going to be pavement instead of concrete, but are the town suggesting that there's going to be street parking, designated street parking there, or when there's some sort of, they're looking at doing the road, what's the outcome of that?
Is that a question for me?
No, I think that's more for the town, because it was indicated that it was talked to the departments through the town.
Mhm.
So through you to Councillor Pridham, we don't know the details of that design review, but in any road, as you know, in any road construction or reconstruction design, everything is looked at. Right now, as I understand it, the town's bylaw allows for parking on one side of the street. There's no direction from Public Works staff that should be changed, but they are going to look at the actual engineered design of that site or of that roadway. But of course, on-street parking will also be examined. There's no intent to change that situation at this time.
Okay, thank you.
So if I could speak to that as well, that comment came up at the planning meeting, and there is on-street parking on the west side of Ontario Street. And when I'm reviewing the lease with tenants, I let tenants know that that is an available parking area for them, not overnight through November 1st to May 1st. But that parking area is not used as a supplement to what people are using on the property. We have a couple of visitors, regular visitors, that seem to opt to park on the street, even when we have available visitor parking. I'm unsure why that's the choice. Situations that arise where there is a large influx of vehicles on the street has been influenced by us directly, and I can that directly relates to snow removal, where we maintain the parking lots ourselves. We do our own snow removal, and we can do that with the cars in the parking lot. But after a large dumping of snow, and we had several of them this winter, we invite tenants to leave the parking lot so that we can do a full scrape and clean it right out, so that we don't have banks and we don't have curbs and other things that will impede snow removal and mobility throughout the rest of the winter. So at those events, we ask tenants to leave the parking lot. Many will park on Ontario Street because they're not going anywhere, they're just getting out of our way. But then when snow removal is complete, those vehicles come in very quickly. And the other time that I can think of within the last year where we had a mass outside parking was when we repainted the lines on the parking lot. So that was a full day out of the parking lot, but it was a weekday. Many people were at work. So there were vehicles on the road. At those times, I agree that curved area of Ontario Street is a congested point. But the situations where you're seeing an influx of our tenants affecting that is very situational.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, further questions from council? Okay, Ms. Baird, we covered your input this evening. Was there anything, did you want to speak to council tonight about anything else, or just here to see? Okay, just wanted to check. Okay, thank you for attending. Okay, anything further from council? Okay, so did we miss anything, Mark or Grant, or did the applicants want to add anything else to the public meeting section?
I have nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you to the Murphys for attending. We appreciate your comments. We have our staff report a little bit later on to discuss further development. So So I'd like to thank everyone for participating in the public meeting. When a decision is made regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application, notice will be provided as prescribed by the Planning Act, and a 20-day appeal period to the Ontario Land Tribunal would apply. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on then in our agenda, we'll move to item number 6, which is with regards to regular council meeting minutes. We have the minutes from the April 8th, 2025 session. They were printed in your package. Are there any errors or omissions with those minutes? Seeing nothing, I'll seek a motion that the April 22nd, 2025 regular council meeting minutes be approved by council and signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. So I'm going to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Alward, second by Councillor Pridham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Under correspondence, I have nothing unless I missed something, which will lead to staff reports, administration. I believe Ms. McCartney, please.
Council, this is your annual report regarding bylaw enforcement officers that will be hired, have already been hired. The 5 that are listed within the bylaw will begin their employment with Stratford Police Services next week. They'll receive training in Stratford specific, and then beginning the following week, they'll transition 2 at a time per week into St. Mary's and receive St. Mary's specific training. They will be focusing on typical bylaw enforcement such as traffic and parking. They'll be monitoring the parks to ensure that activity in the parks does meet our parks bylaw. And also they'll just be great ambassadors for St. Mary's, getting out and talking to residents and tourists that they see along the street. So the bylaw was attached to the bylaw section of the agenda, and the 5 individuals that were listed there are the ones that will be employed this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? We've been quite happy with this program over the years. It's good public feedback, and we appreciate the cooperation with the Stratford Police Services, and again, the work of the Clerk's Department, making them bylaw enforcement officers, has sort of helped out with some of the parking and other issues we've been facing. So I think it's a good program all the way around. So thank you for that report. So the suggested motion is amend 23-2025 Park Patrol Law Enforcement Officer appointment for 2025 report be received, and the council consider bylaw 30-2025 being a bylaw to appoint Park Patrol employees as municipal law enforcement officers in the town of St. Mary's. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Edney, seconded by Councillor Lucas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to 8.2, Building and Development, with regards to the zoning bylaw amendment. Mr. Stone, please.
Yes, I gave a presentation. I'll keep this very short. My recommendation is that council direct staff to take the comments received, including those from the public, and come back with a recommendation report in short order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add, Mr. Brower? No?
Nothing.
Okay.
Further, your worship.
Okay. Questions from council about the procedure, where we're going with this? Okay, I'll put the motion on the floor then as stands. The DEV 10-2025 application for zoning bylaw amendment Z01-2025 and site plan approval by Rick and Melanie Murphy from 121 Ontario Street South report be received, and the staff report back to council through a preparation of a comprehensive report outlining staff recommendations on the disposition of the zoning bylaw amendment application following an assessment of all internal department, external agency, public, and council comments. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Alward, seconded by Councillor Lucas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Great. Thank you. Moving on to item 8.2.2 with regards to condominium exemption process. Mr. Stone, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a presentation, but I'll just spend a couple of minutes talking about where this report came from and what's being recommended. So as council's aware, the process for processing plans of subdivision and plans of condominium are very similar. Applications are submitted to the town. If they're deemed complete, they go through a process. At the end of the process, council considers issuing a series of conditions of draft approval. Again, whether it's for a plan of subdivision or a plan of condominium. And those conditions need to be fulfilled before the plan, again, whether it's subdivision or condo, can be granted final approval and registered. So the requirement for draft approval of draft plans of subdivision makes entire sense, as there's typically a long list of conditions, sometimes get 40, 50, 80 conditions that have to be fulfilled. And that's because there are issues and studies to be approved for extension of services, road design, lock rating, drainage, the requirement to enter into a detailed subdivision agreement, posting of securities, and so on. But in the case of many plans of condo, there often is no need for a long list of conditions. I think we had one recently that had 9 conditions. And the reason for that is most condos do go through a planning approval or approvals prior to even getting to the plan of condominium stage. And so usually there's a site plan approval in place where servicing, drainage, and other considerations have been designed and approved by the town. And in addition, with most condos, a site plan agreement has already been entered into and securities have been provided. The Planning Act provides an exemption option for most types of plans of condo. And because much of the review, the studies, the entering into an agreement, the posting of securities has been completed already on plans of condo, municipalities can grant exemptions. This is already enshrined in the Planning Act, and many municipalities have a process in place. So what we wanted to do was set out a process for the Planning Advisory Committee and Council to consider when staff receives these exemption requests. And through this process that I've outlined in the staff report, final approval would be granted by council, but only after staff has advised that the application has been reviewed by town departments and applicable agencies. There are no other substantial requirements or conditions being asked by departments and agencies, ensuring that the plan of condominium continues to meet applicable policy, zoning. There was some sort of previous public process, and in most cases, as you know, there probably was a zoning bylaw amendment. There's a development agreement in place, and as I mentioned, most of these condos that might be considered for exemption, there's already a site plan agreement in place with securities, and often all of the required works in that site plan agreement is in place. So we just wanted to set out this process for you. Again, there's no bylaw required for this. This is already, as I said, permitted in the Planning Act, but we wanted to set out a process for you before we receive that first application and bring it forward for a possible exemption. That's my overview, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Questions from council? Councilor Craigmile?
Thank you, Worship. So just so that we're all on the same page here, Mr. Stone, in providing this exemption, because we're really talking about, we've already got a site plan in place, we've got all that. So we're just talking about the building structure. We're not talking about the condominium operation, which is a completely separate regulation that the Condominium Act has to go for all the tenants and whatnot. We're just making sure everything's done for them. That's correct? So it has no real impact. Correct. Okay, thank you.
There's no impact. So there are 2 main parts of the approval and the review and approval process is, has the building and the site been built and designed? And then if they choose to go via condo, and there, of course, there are various forms of condo, is it appropriate for that condo to be approved because all of the studies and all the works have been completed? And also, will a declaration be in place prior to registration of the condo? Will all of the other requirements as far as bylaws for that condo be in place? So all those things will still occur. What this is simply doing is taking out that middle part, which is the requirement to issue draft approval. Because in a lot of these condos, the conditions that are left because the site's already built and you know inspections have occurred are really administrative. So we want to quicken the process for developers, again, provided that the development has been done to the town specs and there is a way forward for that condo to be registered as per requirements of the Condo Act in the town.
So just as a follow-up then, what I'm trying to get you to say is that this is, there's nothing that council or anybody else could add. It's a way of probably reducing the red tape and letting the proprietor probably save himself 4 months of other anguish, which directly relates into it's an economic thing for even the builder just to get things progressing.
Yeah, it's speeding up the process, but with even this expedited process, it will give staff, agencies, or members of council say, whoa, wait a second, should we be exempting this? Should we draft approve this with conditions? Because there's a couple things that need to be addressed first. The intent here is to speed up the process and remove red tape, as you said.
Okay, and just to follow up again on what you just said though, if during this exemption process, this follow-up, if staff comes up with something that's you're biting heads with, then it probably would come to council, wouldn't be exempted. Is that correct?
Through you, quite frankly, whether or not there is a concern with the exemption would come up before the application even comes forward.
Okay.
So we would still have pre-consultation. And at that point, we're asking agencies, departments, hey, these folks have come in for an exemption. Anything that we're concerned with, they would know even before the application. Very unlikely that the body that might say, well, wait a second, are we okay to fully exempt this? Might be council. And that's why I've suggested we still bring this to council so you can have a look at it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? All right, thank you for that report. I'll put the motion on the floor then. The suggested motion is that DEV 11-2025 condominium exemption process report be received and that council adopt the condominium exemption process outlined in DEV 11-2025. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Luna. Is there a seconder? Councillor Allward. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Moving on to 8.3.1 is community services. We have Ms. Slade with us this evening to speak with regard to a life jacket lending program. Ms. Slade, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So the Life Saving Society has a new life jacket lending program application that we would like to apply for. We currently do have a well-established life jacket lending program at the quarry, but with a successful application, we'll be able to expand the number of life jackets available to use for daily use at no cost. So the society will contribute 9 adult life jackets, and the town will match the number in youth life jackets. With the overall growing attendance, we are looking to expand the inventory of life jackets to ensure there are sufficient on site for those that require them. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, pretty straightforward. All right, then I'll put the motion on the floor then that DCS 31-2025 life jacket lending program report be received and the council authorize the aquatic manager to make an application to the Life Saving Society for the life jacket contribution program agreement and sign the associated agreement. So I'm willing to move the motion. Moved by Councillor Craigmile, seconded by Councillor Edney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you for that. And then moving on to item 8.3.2 with regards to the Super Splash MOU, please, Ms. Slade.
Yes. Since the inception of Super Splash, we have had a memorandum of understanding in place that outlines that the town of St. Mary's will provide head lifeguards and lifeguards to provide safety supervision for Super Splash inflatable water park. The agreement also sets out expectations and responsibilities for both parties for training, compliance, staff schedules, and share costs. For the past 3 summers, this agreement has been beneficial for both the town of St. Mary's and Super Splash. Happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this memorandum of understanding.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Okay, I think everyone would agree it's been a very successful program for the town, and we thank you for your support and work on this endeavor. And I'll put the motion on the floor then. The DCS 32-2025 Super Splash MOE report be received, and the council considers bylaw 31-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding with Super Splash Inflatable Water Park for lifeguard services. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Pridham. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lucas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you for this evening.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8.4, with regards to Public Works, we have a report from Mr. Kelly with regards to the Energy Demand Management Plan. Mr. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Worship. I am actually going to let Mr. Redmond give you a bit of an executive summary, and then we'll be open for questions.
Okay, thank you. You're on mute, Thomas. I just need you to turn your mic on, please. Yeah.
Can you folks hear me now? Does that work?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Thomas. Yeah.
Apologies, guys. Just trying to keep it interesting here for you. Perfect. Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to give a quick executive summary of our report here, PW 28. So Public Works collaborated with the Ontario Clean Water Agency to produce this regulatory benchmark document. We confirmed alongside Aqua that the province would permit us to submit and post this document to our website upon completion, even though we'd surpassed that July 1st, 2024 deadline. So just to kind of speak to the document, it's a benchmark document which will be used foundationally going forward. It's a living document, so it can be updated and amended as needed over the course of the next 3 years by staff. Once accepted by council, as I said, the report will be presented on our website and submitted to the ministry. We were able to have the Green Advisory Committee review the document earlier in the year. They requested some moderate revisions and wanted a bit of an expanded verbiage around the targets in the document. So we brought that back to Aqua, and those changes have been incorporated into the report. We were fortunate to receive a $10,000 grant from Enbridge through the Municipal Climate Action Offer to cover more than half the cost of completing the document. In terms of highlights, our target is to absorb our population growth and maintain our energy consumption relative to the current levels. Our electricity consumption trended downwards while our natural gas consumption increased. Of course, it must be stated that COVID-19 played a part in the numbers that have been presented as well. So it's worth bearing that in mind. One of the things we are optimistic about in Public Works is that we'll be better equipped in 2028 to complete the next iteration of this document in-house, rather than relying as heavily on contracted help there. And finally, just wanted to speak to the current political climate. It's a bit difficult to justify taking a hardline stance one way or another with respect to climate change action. One example is the carbon tax being rescinded just prior to the recent federal election. And the emissions targets that were initially set for 2035 were just recently adjusted to 2055, pardon me. So it's a little difficult to anticipate how environmentally forward thinking the province and federal government want us to be. That being said, we of course will endeavor to continue to operate with a green St. Mary's in mind as we do throughout our daily operations going forward. Happy to field any questions from council.
Okay, thank you for that report. Questions from council? Councilor Craig Mount?
I'm on. Thank you, Mayor. It's really not as much as a question, but when you read through the actual management document, there's a lot of good information there of benchmarks of where we currently are And then you've got those few years with COVID, and it'll be a real tool moving forward if we can keep seeing what the consumption is and whatnot. And then you know exactly there's not a lot the town can do except the LED lighting and different things like this, and there'll be all kinds of differences depending on use. But I think it's a real good document, a good benchmark, like you said, for us to understand all our facilities and where we currently stand.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Alward.
Thanks, Your Worship. And just a comment to say that thank you for so quickly taking the feedback from the Green Committee and putting it into the final sort of version of this document. I know the expanded verbiage is important to the members of that committee and certain the public as well. So I do appreciate that, and thank you. Excellent, as usual.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? All right, anything to add, gentlemen, or did that cover it? Okay, thank you both. All right, thank you both for the report. I'll put the motion on the floor then, that PW 28-2025 Energy Demand Management Plan report be received, that the council approve the proposed 24 to 2028 Energy Conservation and Demand Management Plan as per OREG 25-23. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Alward, second by Councillor Pridham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to item number 9, which is council reports. We'll just discuss any verbal reports with regards to committees or councillor actions, and I'll defer to Councillor Craigmile to start, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'll start with BRA, Blue Water Resources, and the next meeting is, now that we're only meeting quarterly, we'll have a little meeting on Thursday morning, but it's not a mandatory one, so we don't have them all the time anymore. So I don't have too much to report there, but if you have any questions, just ask me and I'll try and answer them. At Upper Thames, what's in your package? We've previously reported on. The next meeting is May 27th. PAC, we've already, the last meeting was March 17th, and we looked after 2 of those items tonight, so that's good. We'll move to Lincoln's. Unfortunately, the Lincoln's in Game 7 it was a great game, mind you, but it fell a little bit short. But that's 2 good years they've had in a row. I think the attendance during the Chatham series in St. Mary's was pretty close to capacity. If the capacity is 1,449 or something, they were probably in that 1,350 to 1,400. So it was well attended by the community. So that was really good. Our last Lincoln meeting was right in the middle of that series, so it was canceled. So we got a ways to go yet for the next one. Minor hockey, there's a meeting on Thursday night, so I don't have too much to report there. I think this meeting will be, it might be too soon, but it may be interesting because the tryouts have just finished for all the minors, and it'll be good to get some feedbacks from the teams if they've gathered it up already, is what the impact was with the open borders. So that could be very interesting. Community liaison, there has been no meeting, so I don't think I have anything else to report on, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, Councillor Edney, please.
Thank you, Worship. I have very little to report. I've had about 3 weeks in a row that have been fairly meeting-free. Do want to mention that June 7th is the induction at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Looking forward to that. And I was unavailable for the Community Policing Advisory Committee. So I hope that Councillor Luna will be able to bring us up to date on that. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? All right, Councillor Luna, please.
Thank you, Worship. Not a lot to report. The health unit met last Friday, May the 9th. And as usual lately, the measles situation is still of a great concern. As of May the 6th, there were 1,440 cases, diagnosed cases in Ontario, 175 in Huron and Perth counties, and 17 hospitalizations. So it is putting a bit of a strain on our healthcare system. We were informed that they are getting a refund from WSIB. I guess WSIB has a huge surplus, and we're getting part of that back, so that's good news. Spruce Lodge, we're meeting next week, but I don't recall that there was anything of significance from that meeting. Community Policing Advisory Committee, it was a record meeting. It was less than 15 minutes, I think we got through that meeting. Nothing to report from there, although in the interim, Deputy Chief Jerry Foster has announced his retirement from the police services, so that's going to be a position that needs filling. And the Perth County Municipal Association, we met last Monday, and we're still moving forward for the Municipal Day in November, and we're just trying to lock down speakers right now for that day. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Lucas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a whole lot going on. Again, Spruce Lodge, Marg had mentioned I was unavailable for that meeting, and I was also unavailable for the Chamber of Commerce meeting. Although I just want to note that our chamber manager, I sit on another board for advocacy. He was part of a delegation to Queen's Park today. It was a bit of a Q&A. And he's actually also going to Washington with the Canadian Chamber as a delegation to talk about impacts on the automotive industry and stuff like that. So our local chamber is getting quite involved, so that's good to hear. And then I just want to touch base on our heritage and culture. We had a proposal brought forward for artwork for the electrical pedestals downtown. It's going to come to council, I believe, in the next meeting. But you can take a look at our agenda if you're interested to see what it's looking like. Just be warned, what you see is not the final product. It is a mock-up of what they're expecting to see. So a concept. Thank you, Councillor Allward. I was struggling with it prior to the meeting, but I had conversations with Amy and confirmed that. So if you do go on the agenda and look at it, please be advised it's concept only. And then other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Pridham, please.
Thank you. The library board, we had a meeting, and there's a draft library strategic plan that's available, and a public survey that's going to be out and about until the end of September. So you can take a look at that and fill out the survey. I think it's 5 minutes to do the survey. And along with the survey, we as the board will be hosting some events. I guess the library will be hosting the events, but we'll be asked to attend if we're available, and give the public a chance to talk directly to the board about their views on the library, what they'd like to see and whatnot. I think we're looking forward to a presentation from the library board probably next meeting, but I think it is. And Rec and Leisure Advisory Committee, the nominations for the Sports Wall of Fame have closed, so I believe we're looking at those the end of this month. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Pridham? Okay, Councillor Allward, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. The Green Advisory Committee has not met since my previous report. Councillor Pridham has done a stunning job covering the library board meeting, and the BIA met yesterday night. We had a presentation from Morgan in tourism regarding the Heritage Festival. Seems that there will be this year sort of a push to kind of try and have downtown businesses stay open a little longer, or to be on the street a little bit longer, and then seemingly the external vendors will have a time in the afternoon to sort of be facilitated out. And so I guess they're hoping to have the street be more lively later into the evening for the street dance and all that sort of thing. We agreed to contribute the $2,500 as we did the previous 2 years, making us a gold level sponsor. Other than that, through the meeting, there were many ideas discussed and spitballed, as is the standard, though the only concrete thing I can give you is that we are doing the Where's Waldo event during Heritage Festival again. And Waldo, I'm Waldo again. So that's continuing. And during the Merchants Open House, we will be keeping the Whoville theme again this year. So in November, I will again be the Grinch as well. So we're keeping the job, we're doing well, and that's all I have to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Alward? All right, seeing nothing then, I'll put the motion on the floor that the committee and board minutes listed under agenda items 9.1.1 to 9.1.7 and 9.2.1 to 9.2.12 be received, and that the verbal updates provided by council representative on these committee and board meetings be received. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Luna, seconded by Councillor Edney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. The next item I have nothing under emergent or unfinished business. We have a notice of motion that was put forth for consideration by Councillor Luna, which will be considered on May 27th. Councillor Luna, I'll defer to you. Is there anything you want to mention for this evening for council's consideration?
Not at this point, Your Worship, but I just hope council reads carefully this motion and makes a decision on it.
Okay, thank you. We'll put it on our agenda for May 27th, and we do want to wish Councillor Luna a happy birthday. She spent this evening with us, her celebrating her 39th birthday. She told me this evening, and we appreciate her making the sacrifice to come out, so thank you for that. So that, moving on to item number 12 then, which would be bylaws. So the suggested motion that bylaws 30-2025 and 31-2025 be read a first, second, third time, and approved by mayor and council, approved by council. Someone like to move that motion? Councillor Alward, seconded by Councillor Pridham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Under upcoming meetings, we have May 20th, strategic priorities in council chambers at 9 o'clock, and May 27th, which is our regular meeting of council. There will be a presentation by the library board, I believe, as well as consideration of Councillor Luna's motion. Anything else with regards to meetings coming up? Okay, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes before we do closed session, if everyone's okay. Thank you. If we're okay, we'll reconvene, are we? Okay, so our next item is item 14, which is a closed session. So I'll seek a motion that council move into a session that is closed to the public at 7:09 PM. As authorized under the Municipal Act, Section 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition and disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and F, advice is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Someone going to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Alward, seconded. Councillor Craigmile. All in favor? The motion is carried.